Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of your sources and extract the most important nuggets of knowledge. Today we're diving into something really fundamental. What if the stories we live by, the very narratives shaping our world, aren't just happening? What if they're in some ways engineered? We're exploring how these powerful narratives spread, how they change, and how deeply they affect, well, everything. Our guide today is Jelena Simunovic's work, specifically the Cognosystemic theory of human psychosocial relational construction. It's quite a title.
It is, yeah.
But essentially, it offers this unified way to understand how our minds and our social worlds build reality together. And our mission, to really unpack one core idea, the Cognosystemic Meme.
Exactly. And when we talk about meme here, it's important to stress we're not just talking about, funny internet pictures.
Not the viral cat videos?
Okay. Not primarily, no. Those can be part of it, vehicles perhaps. We're talking about fundamental units of meaning, and crucially, units that are intentionally designed to influence our psychosocial reality. What's really fascinating, and where it differs from, say, Richard Dawkins' classic idea of memes.
Which were more like simple replicators.
Precisely. Dawkins saw them as cultural genes, just spreading, replicating. The cognosystemic meme, though, it has this incredible plasticity. It's built to change, to adapt, to transform across all sorts of levels, from your own thoughts right up to massive cultural shifts.
Okay, so if they're not just random ideas catching fire, but intentionally crafted.
Yeah.
How does that work? How do they operate? Let's dig into that. Let's unpack this concept. So to start, can we get a clear definition? How exactly does Simunovic define this cognosystemic meme? And maybe expand a bit more on that key difference with Dawkins.
Sure. The book defines it as the minimal unit of meaning intentionally designed to operate as a vehicle of narrative influence within the Cognosystem. And that word intentionally, it really is the absolute key.
It changes the whole dynamic, doesn't it?
It really does. Richard Dawkins, in books like The Selfish Gene, he framed memes as cultural replicators, analogous to genes. They spread through imitation, communication, repetition.
Competing for mind space, basically.
Exactly. Culture as this evolutionary soup where successful ideas survive. But the cognosystemic meme, it's doing more than just replicating. It's not just about an idea catching on. It's a unit of meaning purposefully crafted to modulate, to transform narratives. It has what the theory calls structural plasticity. It can change its form and transformative capacity. It can re-signify itself, evolve within its environment.
That sounds much more strategic, less like a virus, maybe more like a tool, or even a kind of blueprint for influencing thought. So it's not just a catchy tune, but the underlying architecture. What are the components? What are these units actually made of?
That's a great way to put it, like a blueprint. The theory identifies several key components, these building blocks. First, there's the semantic core.
Yeah.
This is the essential meaning, the central idea, and it's adaptable. Think about, say, innovation. That core idea, innovation, is the semantic core. It can be framed differently if you're talking about business or technology or art, but the core meaning persists.
So it's the versatile essence. What else?
Second, the narrative body. This is the cognitive evaluation that supports the narrative. It's the underlying premises, the arguments, the evidence, the emotional appeals that justify the core idea.
The why you should believe this part.
Precisely. If the core is higher education guarantees success, the narrative body might include premises like degrees give you a competitive edge, or employers value academic credentials. These are constantly checked against our experiences too.
Makes sense. What's next?
Third, the representation format. How is the meme expressed? The theory points to discursive, that's language, words.
Spoken or written?
Both. Then visual images, symbols, videos, and also ritual.
Rituals? How so?
Yeah, think about practices, ceremonies. A daily company meeting reinforcing teamwork, or a national holiday ritual reinforcing patriotism. These actions embed the meaning.
Ah, I see. So it's not just what's said or shown, but what's done.
Exactly. Fourth, dissemination channels. Pretty straightforward. How does it travel?
Right.
Could be a family conversations, school curricula, workplace norms, media platforms, social media, news, entertainment. It operates across all those ecosystemic levels the theory talks about.
Micro, meso, exo, macro.
You got it. From the individual right up to the whole culture. And finally, number 5, the propagation strategy.
The plan.
The plan. The intentional design for making it go viral, for legitimizing it, for repeating it until it's widely adopted. Think of advertising campaigns, political messaging.
That really emphasizes the intentional aspect again. It's not accidental spread. Of those components, is there one that you think is particularly potent, maybe often underestimated?
Oh, interesting question. I might lean towards the representation format, specifically the ritual element you picked up on.
Really?
Because we tend to focus so much on the words, the explicit messages, the images, but rituals, these repeated practices, they embed narratives very deeply, often below conscious awareness. They become just the way things are done.
Making the narrative feel natural, inevitable even.
Exactly. It bypasses critical analysis sometimes.
That's powerful. Okay, so we have these intentionally designed units with specific components. Do they all serve the same purpose, or are there different kinds of cognosystemic memes?
There are different types based on their function, their impact on existing narratives. The theory outlines a few key typologies. First, you have consolidation memes.
Consolidation.
Okay.
So they shore things up.
Precisely. They reinforce existing narratives, especially dominant or hegemonic ones. A prime example might be the narrative around technological progress being inherently good and necessary for societal advancement.
You see that everywhere. Ads, government policy.
Absolutely. Or the idea of meritocracy, that success is purely down to individual talent and effort. These consolidate the status quo.
Okay. What else?
Then, friction memes. These are the opposite in a way.
They create friction.
Yeah.
Challenge things.
Exactly. They intentionally introduce conflict, challenging dominant ways of thinking. Think about the ongoing push and pull between narratives of, say, economic growth at all costs versus environmental sustainability.
Like the ultra-liberal versus maybe Keynesian ideas mentioned in the source.
Yes, that's a perfect example in the economic sphere. Or debates about individual liberties versus public health needs. They generate tension, force reevaluation.
Right. And the third side?
Transitional memes. Now, the source doesn't use this exact label, but the concept is there. These facilitate gradual change, helping to reconfigure narratives without a complete break.
Bridging memes almost.
Sort of, yeah. They allow for hybrid discourses. An example might be, we strengthen our traditions by integrating diverse perspectives. It allows a group or society to adapt, to incorporate new elements without feeling like it's abandoning its core identity.
Like a community using modern tech to preserve ancient crafts.
That's a great example. It bridges old and new.
So these memes aren't just floating ideas. They have jobs to do. Consolidate, challenge, transition. What are their broader functions within the whole Cognosystem, this network of mind and society?
They play critical roles in the overall dynamics. First, obviously, dissemination and integration. They're the vehicles carrying meaning, helping new ideas spread and potentially integrate into existing belief systems.
Getting the stories out there.
Right. Second, maintaining narrative coherence over time. This is called chronosystemic continuity. Memes allow narratives to adapt their meaning as contexts change so the story stays relevant. Think about the idea of work. Its meaning has shifted hugely from the Industrial Revolution's focus on discipline to today's talk of work-life balance and purpose, but the core narrative work is important persists, adapted by these memes.
So they provide stability through change, in a way.
Exactly. And third, and this is crucial, they catalyze structural narrative changes. This is where their transformative power really comes in. They can drive major shifts in how we understand the world, redefining large-scale symbolic structures.
Which brings us to how they actually spread, and importantly, how they change, how they mutate. How does a meme travel from one person's idea potentially up to a societal level?
This process is called internarrative transmission, and it's dynamic, multi-directional. A personal story, say someone's narrative of overcoming addiction, that's the microsystem, if shared in a support group.
A mesosystem.
Right. It might inspire others, maybe lead to a community initiative. If that gets amplified, perhaps through local media ecosystem.
It could influence policy. Funding for treatment centers.
It could, and eventually contribute to shifting broader cultural attitudes about addiction, macrosystem, moving from stigma towards understanding it as a health issue. It's that movement across levels.
Can they change along the way? You mentioned mutation.
Yes. Semantic mutation capacity.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. It's the meme's ability to change its actual meaning, its significance, depending on the cultural context, the power dynamics. We talked about individual responsibility. In a highly individualistic culture, that meme might focus on self-reliance, meritocracy.
Right. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Exactly. But in a more collectivist culture, the same core idea of responsibility might be framed around contributing to the community, accessing opportunities equitably, relying on support networks. The core adapts its flavor.
The chameleon effect you mentioned earlier, so the idea travels and transforms. How does this transformation happen structurally? What are the mechanisms?
The theory highlights three main ways narratives get reconfigured. First, fusion.
Like atoms fusing, combining.
Pretty much. Different memes merge to create a new, more complex narrative. The example given is digital connectivity as progress, which fuses ideas about technology, economic growth, and social connection.
Or your example of eco-luxury.
Exactly. Combining environmentalism and high-end consumerism. It creates a new niche, a new story.
Okay, fusion. What else?
Competition. This one's more straightforward. Memes fighting for dominance.
The narrative battleground.
That's it. One meme tries to displace another. The classic example is free market versus planned economy. Each narrative constantly competes for influence over policy and public opinion.
A zero-sum game, sometimes.
Often, yes. One narrative seeks hegemony over the other, and the third mechanism is absorption.
Absorption. Like a sponge.
Kind of. This is when a dominant narrative takes elements from a challenging or alternative narrative, but without actually changing its own fundamental position.
So it looks like it's evolving, but it maintains control.
Precisely. It co-opts the challenger's language or ideas to stay relevant, to neutralize the threat. The example was mainstream medicine incorporating some alternative practices to become integrative health.
So it expands its umbrella to cover the competition rather than being replaced. Sneaky, as I said before.
It can be strategically very effective for maintaining dominance.
Okay, so fusion, competition, absorption are the structural changes. Are there more direct ways they transform?
Yes, two key mechanisms drive the actual transformation of meaning. One is cultural contextualization, which we touched on with semantic mutation. The meaning gets reshaped by the specific cultural, political, social environment it's in. Progress just means different things in different places.
Context is everything.
Absolutely. And the second is the use of symbols and metaphors. These are powerful strategies for getting narratives internalized.
Making abstract ideas stick.
Exactly. Symbols like flags, logos, religious icons pack a huge amount of narrative meaning into a simple form. Metaphors help us grasp complex ideas by relating them to something familiar. Think about calling economic downturns storms or arguments battles.
It frames how we understand it, like the narrative therapy example, using metaphors to externalize problems.
Precisely. Media uses symbols and metaphors constantly to shape our perceptions. They make narratives feel intuitive, deeply embedded.
So these memes are constantly moving, mutating, competing, merging, shaping the narrative landscape. What does this mean for the overall hierarchy? How do some stories become dominant while others fade?
Their activity directly influences that hierarchy. We see the rise of narratives through emerging memes. A story that starts on the margins, a subjugated narrative, can gain traction and eventually become dominant.
Like the civil rights movement example.
A perfect case. The narrative of racial equality, initially held by marginalized groups, fought its way through competition and friction to become a central institutionalized value. Or think about climate change awareness moving from scientific fringes to global policy agendas.
So memes can elevate stories. How do dominant stories stay dominant?
Through consolidation via legitimization and replication, dominant narratives get embedded in institutions, laws, education systems, media, and repeated constantly. This creates what the theory calls narrative inertia.
Hard to shift.
Very. The technological progress is good. Meme is a great example. It's reinforced everywhere, making it seem almost unquestionable, just common sense. Consolidation memes work hard here.
But narratives can also weaken.
Definitely. That's narrative erosion through disruptive memes. New experiences or challenging ideas, friction memes, can destabilize an established narrative.
Like the hard work always equals success story.
Exactly. If your own experience or what you observe consistently contradicts that narrative, maybe you see systemic barriers or success based on connections, not effort, the narrative starts to lose its hold.
Or the example of trust in traditional media eroding due to alternative sources.
Right. New memes, new channels, new experiences challenge the old story, forcing it to adapt or decline.
It really drives home that these narratives aren't static reflections of reality. They seem to be actively constructing it. How do these cognosystemic memes actually reorganize our symbolic world and shape our shared understanding?
That's the core point, really. The cognosystemic meme isn't just a carrier pigeon for meaning. It's described as a strategic mechanism for the validation, reformulation, or displacement of discourses. It's plastic, it mutates, it competes, it fuses, it absorbs. This lets it constantly adapt to historical changes, technological shifts, political winds. It ensures some narratives endure while allowing new ways of understanding, new paradigms to emerge. It actively reconfigures our frameworks for making sense of the world.
And this isn't just about abstract ideas, is it? It touches tangible reality.
Absolutely. Consider fictional narratives even. The source mentions big franchises like Star Wars or Marvel. For dedicated fans, these stories aren't just entertainment. They become part of their identity, their reality, influencing how they see the world, how they interact.
The line blurs.
It can blur significantly. Media narratives, fictional or otherwise, produce meaning that shapes our perception of actual reality. The example of the actor being harassed for his character's actions is disturbing, but it shows just how powerful that link can be.
It highlights the incredible power of our human narrative systems. The fact that things like money only work because we collectively believe the story about its value.
Exactly. Money has no inherent value. It's a shared narrative. Or sports millions agree on abstract rules, and suddenly a game has immense meaning and consequences. These shared stories allow cooperation on a massive scale, build institutions, create complex societies.
Which means they hold immense potential.
For good and ill, yes.
Yeah.
This capacity to shape reality means narratives can be tools for progress, for liberation, but also for control, for oppression. They literally create and transform the world we inhabit. This deep dive really shows the Cognosystemic Meme as a key mechanism in how societies build, adapt, and sometimes fight over their fundamental structures of meaning.
It certainly does. It really lays bare how these subtle, often intentionally crafted units of meaning are constantly working beneath the surface, not just describing our reality, but actively creating it, defining what we see as true, as possible, as right.
It underscores that reality isn't some fixed thing out there. It's dynamic, it's constructed, constantly shaped by the interplay of these meaning units. And understanding that hopefully empowers us to be more critical consumers of the narrative swirling around us.
So the crucial point for you listening is that you're not just passively receiving these stories. As a participant in this whole Cognosystem, your beliefs, your conversations, your actions, they all contribute. You're helping maintain narratives or maybe transform them or even erode them.
Which leads to a pretty significant question, doesn't it? If our shared reality is constantly being shaped by these adaptable, often intentional units of meaning, what responsibility or maybe what opportunity does that give each of us? How can we become more conscious architects of the narratives that define not just our own lives, but the future we're collectively building? How do we choose and propagate the stories that lead towards a better world?